Well, good evening, everyone. First of all, I want to say thank you for coming. The fact that you're here tells me that you are very interested in this topic because you're giving up at least part of a Wednesday night, especially not knowing how much of your Wednesday night you might have been giving up. My name's Marjorie Gruder. I'm the superintendent here at East Peoria Community High School. And with me on the stage is Mr. Andy Paulson. He is our Board of Education president. And I thought we would start tonight with just a little bit of background about why this, why now? I mean, we have enough going on with COVID and all things related to that. Why are we here tonight? Why are we wanting to hear from you? So, to start with, you may or may not have noticed that over time, as we have updated some of our facilities, we have gone from a Native American imagery on the middle of the gym floor, on the middle of the football field, to a staggered EP, okay? One of the reasons that has happened is as we started redoing facilities, and this happened long before I was here, we recognized that there were pockets around the nation that were starting to take up this debate. And that was an administrative decision. Rather than knowing it's eventually coming our way, knowing that those are very expensive items that would have to change if something were to change, that's why we went to our staggered EP. And we use the staggered EP on a lot of things right now. The first thing you should know about me is I have no agenda here. And I know I've only been here as superintendent for 5 years, but my husband and his family have graduated 4 generations from East Peoria High School. So I have deep roots in the community. My own daughter graduated from here in 2008. So I do have deep roots in the community. I care about this community. I care about this school very much. And I care about what all of you think. And so does our Board of Education. So last year, in this fall sometime, there was legislation that was introduced that Illinois schools with Native American mascots or Native American imagery were going to need to do one of 2 things. Thing 1, change their mascot. Thing 2, if they didn't want to change, then there were going to be requirements of the school. One would be that the school representative would have to appear before the nearest tribe's Native American council to, for lack of a better word, plead the case of why we would want to maintain the imagery. The other thing we would have to do is to teach 2 courses in Native American history. And neither one of those things are bad things. By all means, don't get me wrong. That legislation did not really go anywhere, but my contacts that I have in the state that spend a lot of time in Springfield have said it's coming back. So one of the reasons we're doing this is we want to be proactive rather than reactive. We want to know what our community thinks. If it comes back in the same form, we want to know, which direction might we go with this. So please know that we are listening. This is not something that we're just doing to do it. We want to hear, and that's why we're having the forum tonight, to listen to anybody that wants to speak. If you do want to speak, I believe you all came through the same door, make sure that you got the red ticket, because I want to go over kind of how this is going to work, and then I'm going to let Mr. Paulson have some comments, and then we'll start drawing the tickets. So everybody that came tonight that wanted to speak got a ticket. We're going to do a random pull of those tickets. So we'll have somebody that's speaking, somebody on deck, and then we'll just pull tickets until we're out of the number of tickets that we gave out. Can you still hear me? Okay. So you should have picked up a little half sheet of paper that kind of explained the information for tonight. It also has on there the rules of conduct. It would grieve me terribly to host a forum like this and have people not be civil to each other. I know there are strong opinions, and I want to give a voice to all opinions, but I also want it to be something that we can look back on and say, we as a community can rise above our differences of opinions and still be civil to each other. I think that's a very important piece of this. And so that's why the rules of conduct are on your agenda. Each person that speaks will have 3 minutes. I will set the timer on my phone. When the timer goes off, it will be your turn to be done if you're the one speaking. I would like for you, if you would please, for everyone that's here, when you come to the microphone and it's your turn to speak, please state your name and kind of your relationship to East Peoria or East Peoria High School, whether you're an alumni, a current student, whatever it is that is your relationship. I do expect the comments to be civilized. It's not a debate. This is not the forum to attack others or debate. We're listening. There's no reason for attacks. Please don't use name calling. Please don't interrupt the speaker. Whether you agree or disagree with the speaker, please allow their voice to be heard. And then, if you would, please stay on topic. I know in this day and age, there's always some things that you would like to share. If you are displeased about something, please keep it about what we're here for tonight. If you have other things that you want to bring up, please call the school and we'll get you into contact with the person that can best address your concerns, okay? At this point, I think what I will do is give the microphone over to Mr. Paulson, and then I will start randomly drawing tickets. And as we call your ticket number, you can come up to either one of the microphones on either one of the stage. I will be taking some notes. Don't be alarmed with that. I just want to make sure when we report back to the Board of Education that we're being as complete as possible. I also will be audio recording so we can be accurate in our report. So with that, Mr. Paulson.
Thank you, Dr. Gruder, and I'd like again just to welcome everybody tonight and just thank you for your attendance and coming out. My name is Andy Paulson. I'm currently the board president of the High School Board of Education. I am not an East Peoria graduate. My wife is a graduate, and so far 2 of our 4 children have graduated, and one of them is a sophomore at the school. So as we sit here tonight, I'm aware of the background and the history of the Raider name, the Raider images that have been used, and as Dr. Gruder said, we're here tonight just to listen and to try to hear what the community wants to say. As an elected official, I think it's important to have public input and public involvement so that the decisions that we're making reflect those people that are in the community. And again, I just appreciate you guys for coming out and showing up tonight for this. From a board perspective, I just want you to know that we discussed this last, I remember, about a year ago. And really at that point, it was just a quick, information item. We tabled it because at that time, obviously, in the middle of COVID, the school was dealing with the flood. There were other things that were more important to the education of students and the safety of students and protection of the faculty and staff than talking through what we would do with respect to a logo. Over the course of the summer, I've had some email interaction with a few parents about this item. I think that as a board member, my philosophy is there are things that the board's involved with that are more of a policy and procedure perspective, and then there are things that are operational with respect to the school. That's the administration's role to take and lead. And so far, I think the changes that have been made with respect to fields or markings on fields or clothing that the school has taken fall clearly in the administration's role, in my opinion. Some of you may differ with that, and I can respect those differences, and I look forward to hearing how you feel about that. And with that, I'd like to just open up the floor for public comment. Sure. Let's see. It's like, yeah. 052003. And then 052016 will be next.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me okay? All right, first of all, thanks for pulling my ticket first. Nothing like setting the tone, right? John Call. Our family, we've had 3 generations graduate out of this East Peoria Community High School, to include our 2 older kids, and currently have 2 children enrolled here as freshmen. So just to give everyone a little bit of background, first of all, thank you guys for hosting this. I know in this day and age, there's a lot of hot button topics. In my position, we deal with it all the time, no different than you guys do. So I appreciate your efforts in asking the community for their input, because the way I look at it, you're going to have half the people on this side and half on the other side. So you're kind of put in a tough spot. Just to give everyone a little bit of background, I'm 55 years old, born and raised here in East Peoria, spent 6 years off in the Marine Corps. Been back here. My wife is not from East Peoria, but we elected to raise our 4 kids here. So community pride is our tagline. And I just want people to know, in my 55 years, I look at the pride that this community has is what a lot of people may not know is, from a history standpoint, East Peoria actually has a Native American burial ground as part of the nature preserve up at Spring Creek. And the Park District is overseeing that. It dates back to 500 AD. So I realize that some people may look at some of the things around the mascot and the imagery and find some offense in it. But I can tell you from East Peoria's perspective, whether people want to agree or disagree, there was never any discrimination involved in the Raider name. I know the administration, in talking to Mr. Whittington back in the mid-90s, did away with the red. I can see where people take offense to that. But the Raiders, I'm not a fan of the cancel culture that's going on in this country. I'm just going to put it out there. I'm also not one for political correctness. I'm pretty direct. But I will tell you this, there's a lot of history with Native Americans on this side of the river along the bluff, and that's the Kickapoo and the Fox tribes. I encourage people to educate themselves, reach out to the Park District. There's signage up there. It's open to the public. Obviously, the grounds are protected, but that's a little gem that a lot of people don't know about our community. And to that point, Marjorie and I, we've been involved in a branding project for the last 2 years. And part of that project is bringing these different entities that include our schools, the city, the park, the library, bringing everyone together to tell the story of East Peoria. And so I want to keep my comments respectful. I can appreciate the administration's efforts with the imagery, and I think that's kind of a compromise. But I do want people to know that House Bill 4783, it was introduced in February of last year. The last action taken on it was in July. And this is all public record. You can look it up yourself. No further action's been taken to this date. The General Assembly did nothing with it when it adjourned back in January of this year. So I just would appreciate the board just pausing, not taking any further action at this point. That's just my 2 cents, but I appreciate your time and allowing us an opportunity to speak. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for your service to the community as well. Yeah. 2016. Oh. And then, 007's on deck. 007 on deck.
I'd rather be 007. I like that number. Anyway, John Knapp. I've been a resident of East Peoria my entire life for the most part. I've got two sons that are in high school as we speak, and I obviously went to East Peoria High School also, graduating back in the early 90s. That being said, and listening a lot to what Mayor Call had mentioned, I've had an opportunity also to do some research with the city, and I'm very proud of where we're from, very proud of the schools, very proud of a lot of things about this community, with one exception. And I really am struggling on a personal note with a lot of the abandoning of the history of the community, a lot of the discussions of, I think there are a tremendous amount of assumptions that there's going to be, that this is offensive, that using the imagery is offensive. I take it 180 degrees to the opposite. I think we honor the history of the people that founded this area and have been here far longer than we have. I think from my perspective, when I can go out on my property and find a lot of the artifacts of these tribes, I think it does nothing more than honor our area and East Peoria in and of itself. And I really struggle with losing some of that history because of a lot of my perception again is a lot of perceived notions that it's a disrespect. I think it's exactly the opposite of that. And I think it's a real shame to lose some of that. I think for the Indian tribes, for some of the individuals that I deal with in the community that have the Indian heritage, I have never one time heard anything that was derogatory other than supporting each other and supporting diversity. And that's something that to me means a lot, particularly with my work and working with a lot of people from a lot of different backgrounds. So from my perspective, I really hope that, as Mary mentioned earlier, that we take a little bit of a step back here and not be too reactionary to something that probably is being made into far more than it probably needs to be. Thank you for your efforts. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Chief Knapp, and also we appreciate your service, your long history of service to the community as well. Thank you. 007 and 013 will be up next.
My name is Bryce Woodward. I'm a senior at the school here. And as a fourth-year member of our school's marching band, I remember...
Sorry, I can hardly understand.
Sure thing. Yeah. As a fourth-year member of our school's marching band, I remember the first 2 years where we performed the war chant at every home football game and every home basketball game. And I remember the first year, I really thought of it as, it's just exciting to be part of a new thing, to be part of...
That wasn't
I figured not. It's okay. I remember my first year, I was just excited to be part of something new, to be part of the high school band. It was exciting. And then the second year came around and I sort of had a deeper understanding of what it was. I realized that it wasn't really school pride. It was more just puppeteering a culture for the sake of our shallow entertainment. I asked 16 of the marching band's seniors what they thought. 10 of them wanted the iconography removed. 4 were unsure, 2 wanted to keep it. The word raider and the violent connotations therein don't have any place in association with local Native American communities. I haven't worn my class shirt since freshman year because every time I look at that head, it just reminds me of what I was doing for the first 2 years of my band experience. And I know many other seniors feel the same way. As alumni, we won't be proud to have come from a school with this mascot. And we won't be proud to go into higher education with this iconography as the only thing to remember our school by. Don't let arguments of tradition or whitewashing distract you tonight. Because when it comes down to it, this is an argument about removing or keeping Native American iconography. It's not about the tradition of the community, and it's not about whitewashing. It's about being respectful. And this is not respectful. At the end of the day, our mascot's 50-year history at the school should not outweigh or overcast the 15,000-year history or more of Native Americans in this area. Much of their rich history, does that mean? Yeah, much of their rich history was lost when European imperialists came to our land. And I would ask and challenge the board to find a local council, Native American council, who truly has no qualms with this. And I would ask you to accurately represent them and their tribes in a way that they believe is respectful. I would ask that no one in this room just assumes that it's harmless.
Thank you. 013,
I think that's me. Let me double check. Yep.
and then just one moment. 012 will be next. 012 next.
You're all set? All right. For those of you that don't know me, I am Ben Diggle. I teach U.S. history here at the school and advanced placement U.S. history here at the school. Before that, I spent 12 years as a sports writer. And so I feel kind of uniquely qualified to give some perspective on what has gone on in the world of Native American mascots. Particularly, I'm focused on the University of Illinois. I'm a huge University of Illinois fan. Grew up bleeding orange and blue. But I understood when it was time for Chief Illiniwek to go. And that came out of my reporting, and how it made some members of the Illiniwek tribe feel. And I also remember how heated it got with farmers being worried they were going to lose their fields and stuff because the tribe threatened to sue. And that's here nor there. That's obviously not here, but that's, what went into it. I'm very proud of what Bryce had to say. For those of you not familiar with Bryce, I would argue that he is one of our best and brightest in the entire school. And I'm thrilled to have had him for 2 years as a student. If we're truly talking about history, there's nothing keeping us from going the opposite direction and honoring the French presence here in Peoria. Could we not honor, LaSalle and Tonti? I think back, for those of you not aware, I spent my first year here as an assistant athletic director under Lori Laredo. And I remember getting a email from the folks at Adidas saying, hey, look, we've got this program for schools with Native American mascots that are looking to make that change, and they were willing to cover a portion of the mascot redesign and the uniform redesign and all that. And I that's where I started to think about it, and could we be the East Peoria Explorers? Could we be, something off of that? There's a lot of different ways to honor the rich history of this area. But I don't know that Raiders is the right one. As Bryce said, I think that has a pretty violent connotation. I'm not even sure that the Illinois were a violent people. Quite frankly, they were driven out of here by the Iroquois because they weren't violent, and the Iroquois frequently raided them. So I leave you with that. I think there's other ways we can go and still honor the rich history of this area, but that's just me, and that's my 2 cents. So I thank you both for your time. I thank the mayor for coming out. Appreciate you. And hopefully we can come to a community-wide decision.
Thank you for your comments. And 012 and and then 010 will follow.
Hi, I'm Grayson Ballas. I am a sophomore at East Peoria High School. I'm 100% Mayan Indian, and I feel this gives me I share, can I start over?
You got this. Grayson.
It's okay, buddy, you're doing it.
You got it. Grayson.
Takes a lot of courage to step up there.
I'm reading my paper. You're good. Read it right off of there.
Yeah, why don't you go over there?
He's very nervous. Want me help? Okay, I'm going to read for him. I'm his mom, Mary. My name is Grayson Ballas. I'm a sophomore at East Peoria High School. I was born in Guatemala, and I am 100% Mayan Indian. I share DNA with the Creek and Cherokee Indians. Mayans are North American Indians. I feel this gives me the right to speak about this issue. I'm also a third generation to graduate, and my great-grandmother taught at East Peoria schools. I believe we should keep the Raider mascot, but make the image more realistic of an authentic Native American. I also think our schools should give us more education about what Native Americans have done and accomplished. For example, the Navajo Code Talkers were very instrumental in World War II, as no one knew their language. We started cultivating corn 10,000 years ago. We played with rubber balls before Goodyear did. We invented kayaks, which are still used today. We invented snow goggles, the precursor to sunglasses. We were using syringes for medicine before the European doctor invented them. We also made jewelry. Native Americans helped Europeans navigate the Americas, and many more accomplishments. I am Mayan, and I am proud. I think it's imperative that schools educate students about Native Americans and their contributions to the world, especially if a school is using a Raider as its mascot. Some will say we were called savages. Vikings were not, but they were called barbarians. Some people say the Europeans committed genocide against Native Americans. I'm not denying that, but my people had genocide committed against them from 1981 through 1983. Almost 200,000 Mayans were murdered. It was called the Silent Holocaust. My people were tortured and enslaved in the 1970s. Some Mayans are still not allowed in some Guatemalan shops and restaurants. What I'm trying to say is I get it, but I believe in showing respect, and it starts with educating students, not just getting rid of the mascot. Since I am Indian and a student here, I feel that my opinion should matter. I'm proud of my heritage. No one will take that from me. I think if people just knew more about Indians and celebrated who they are, they would want to keep the mascot too. Thank you for listening. Grayson Ballas, Mayan Indian.
Thank you for your comments. 010 is up now, and 006 will be next.
Good evening. My name is Amelia Rivera. I am a student at EPCHS. I want to take a moment and thank the board for giving me the opportunity to speak today and address an issue that requires immediate attention. Today I stand before you with Bahati, respect to my Taino culture, a culture that, like many indigenous cultures, was invaded, persecuted, enslaved, and nearly diminished from existence due to exposure of many types of diseases they were unable to build immunity from. Throughout history, indigenous people have been labeled savages, murderers, monsters, and uneducated. They're humiliated and depicted as laughable caricatures, bloodthirsty warriors, and sexualized half-dressed maidens. This is tragic because many of these indigenous cultures contributed greatly to the language, food, music, and everyday life that evolved during the English and Spanish invasions. Their contributions continue to be part of our culture today, yet it may seem this has been forgotten about. And no, we cannot undo the past. We can make things right today, and we can do that in this community, starting here with removing the school mascot. Board members, I am not here to bring guilt and shame to you for the atrocities committed against Native people or my ancestors. My goal is to bring awareness on why removing the mascot and changing the name is of grave importance. This meeting is a direct reflection on the school's stance on appropriate cultural representation, not just to bring luck or add fun to athletic events. I think we can all agree that the last 60 years, specifically the last 2 years, has brought awareness to an issue that has been long ignored. Things such as racial inequity, stereotyping, and intolerance. And as a community, it is our responsibility, yes, to not only ensure, but to teach our future generations, like the faces sitting before you, that all cultures should be celebrated, not stereotyped. Please take a look around this room. How many minority groups can you identify? How many minority groups feel inclusion in your school? How many of your students feel represented and respected in their own identity? I stand here as a representation of those minority groups to ensure you understand that we students feel underrepresented and that our voice is not being heard. Holding this board meeting is the first step in the right direction, but let's move to find more ways towards becoming more tolerant and more educated about the ethnically diverse groups that attend our schools and live in our community. Allow people to demonstrate their pride without worry of harassment, discrimination, or cultural bias. Our identity, my identity, proud Native, Spanish and African, a melting pot of tradition and heritage is who I am. It is not to be made of a mockery of, not to be used for entertainment or fun. I recommend you allow all students to have a voice and vote in a name that represents their fighting spirit to ensure this school is known for its tolerance, acceptance, and compassion for all students that attend. Thank you.
Thank you. So 006 is up next, and then to follow is 014.
Hi, I'm Carrie Woodard. I'm a parent. I have 2 students. One graduated in 2019, and the other's sitting over there. What I'd like to say is that organizations have passed down customs and traditions from one generation to the next. But when it comes to light that those customs are unacceptable, then it's time to change those customs or have it forced on them by law. A handful of years ago, East Peoria Community High School students did an English project for their English class, and they chose to debate whether or not the Native American imagery should be removed. They heard from both sides of the argument. They interviewed a school board member who said they'd never heard anyone complain about the imagery, so they were in favor of keeping it. These students also interviewed an East Peoria Native American group, and in that report, they said that those people are part of our community, and they find the East Peoria continuing to display Native American imagery unacceptable. It doesn't honor anyone specific. It doesn't represent a specific people. It's generic. It's a stereotype. If the imagery depicted stereotypes of women or African Americans, it would have been changed decades ago. So to be clear, our students brought to light that this imagery is unacceptable to members of our community. Why can't we find something that's acceptable to our whole community instead of having half the people on one side and half the people on the other side of the argument? We can move on from that. These same students learned about critical thinking skills in English class too. They learned how to spot a logical fallacy, which is when someone tries to twist your argument into something that it's not, or to compare it to something that's disjunct. You're not debating between removing this imagery versus tradition. Injecting tradition into that argument is the logical fallacy. What you're debating is between removing racial imagery and keeping racial imagery, knowing that it is unacceptable to people in our community. I, for one, would prefer that East Peoria be known to have chosen to change and remove that imagery rather than being known to have been forced by law to remove that imagery. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. 014, and then to follow will be number 1.
Hello, my name is Eva Melnick. I am a sophomore here at East Peoria. I'd like to thank you for allowing me to speak on a topic that's needed to be talked about for a while now. I'd like to bring along a few points, but first I'd like to start off by saying that I'm not a part of the Native American culture, nor do I claim to be. I don't know how they feel, and I can't make points for them, but I think it is important to recognize that they are their own culture, They have feelings, and Native Americans were and still are a prominent part of our community today. This conversation has brought up lots of controversy, and whatever side of it you're on, I think it's important to recognize that. If it's bringing up this much problems, it is maybe important to see if this is something that's hurting our community, maybe it's time to change. If this is a problem with this many people, it needs to change. I hear people say, well, if you take away this, then we have no school spirit, and I think it's important to bring up, you can still have school spirit and be proud of something without making a mockery of a culture or an image or a person. I was brought aware of this issue about a year ago when a parent used very vulgar language towards me about how dumb it was that they were changing it or that it was even brought in conversation. I think we need to move forward in a representative, great light, because I know East Peoria has good students and we have great school spirit, but it should not be at the cost of somebody else or another culture. Thank you.
Thank you. And number 1 is not next, and then to follow will be number 2.
My name is Danita Parra. I'm Native American and European. I'm also the pastor of Dayspring Native American United Methodist Church. And that's the group that the students came and spoke to about the mascot. I think I'm the one who said something about the stereotypes, about how there isn't one Native culture. There are many. There are 565 nations that are recognized by the federal government. And that's only some of them, because there are many others that are not recognized by the government. The first speaker mentioned that this area was home to the Fox and the Kickapoo. There were a lot of other nations that this area was home to as well. And when you look at that mascot, you can't really tell who is it that is being depicted. Why is that person being depicted? There's a rich history of Native American people here, but that rich history isn't seen in that mascot. I don't know, I've lived here for 6 years and I don't know anything about the rich history of that mascot here. I do know that in 1890, Native peoples were not allowed to do their own ceremonies anywhere in the United States. I also know that in the 1920s, when Chief Illiniwek became the mascot there was a young man doing Native ceremony when my ancestors weren't allowed to do it. I also know that in 1978, when the laws finally changed that allowed my ancestors, my family, my current family, to be able to do Native American ceremony, many of us had already forgotten it because our grandparents and our great-grandparents were not able to do it before. So there is a lot of pain involved. I'm not saying that you should remove the mascot. I am saying that it would be nice to be able to be proud of it on all levels, to be able to share the history with the greater community as well as with the students here, to be able to build relationships with the Native people of this area, including those who are no longer in this area, but who were removed by force by the government of that time. Times have changed. people have changed. And I can hear it in the voices. There's a desire for honor and respect to continue. Now it's just a question of finding the way to make that happen. Thank you.
Zero, 004. And then 005.
Hello, everybody. I'm Lillian Maroon. As a minority Arab woman, specifically Lebanese woman, this whole situation of cultural appropriation we have going on at this school really upsets me on a personal level. Growing up, I was taught to be proud of my culture and to celebrate it. If a non-Middle Eastern person were to mock my culture or culturally appropriate it, I would see it as disrespectful, posing, racist, mockery, and a tarnish to my existence. I can only imagine how a Native American or Indigenous person in this community or America feels about how our school and many others use their culture as a costume or gimmick. Now, as a disclaimer, I am obviously not an Indigenous or Native American person, so I cannot speak for them as should nobody else. It is not our place to do so because Native Americans and Indigenous people have a mind of their own. It is simply our job to listen and take necessary action. As a minority, I feel for Native Americans and I'm going to stand up for them. I know how it feels for your culture to be misunderstood, mocked, laughed at, and appropriated. So to start off, racism against Native Americans is never mentioned and the media chooses to not show it. Historians turn it away and it never gets any attention. It seems like it's normalized, and that's what we're doing at this high school. Our imagery is an insult to Native American culture. It is stereotypical. It is categorizing Native Americans into one caricature, almost like a cartoon character, as if they are all the same, which they're not. And for those of you who keep saying this is honorable or we're honoring Native people, you don't get to decide that. You don't get to decide if Native Americans feel honored. The person or people that you are honoring gets to be the ones to decide if what you are doing is actually honoring them or demeaning them. When the group you are honoring says it's not honorable to them, you shut up and you listen to them. In this case, the Native Americans from our community and all across the world have stated what we're doing is not honoring them. Therefore, we need to listen. I'm under the impression that tonight's objective is to change the Native American imagery our school uses. This is 100% a step in the correct direction and right direction, but also I would encourage the school board to change the highly offensive term we call ourselves, the Raiders. This name needs to be changed. If we're going to do this, let's do it right. The term Raider is just as insulting to Native Americans as the imagery is. So any name would be better for our school than a name that is very insulting and upsetting to an entire ethnicity of people. And we need to recognize that. Also, things like whoever decided at the football games our players should run over a headdress full of feathers we don't understand, that needs to stop. I believe we owe Native Americans and Indigenous people respect by doing this. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. And 005. And then to follow will be 017.
Hi, I'm Madeline Gonzalez, and I'm a senior at East Peoria. I wanted to start off, first of all, by thanking the board for allowing our community to have a chance to speak and voice our opinions. Cutting to the chase, East Peoria is overwhelmingly white. The school is overwhelmingly white, and our school board is overwhelmingly white. And yet we feel justified in parading the head of a minority group around as if it is a Halloween costume. I'm a senior, so I know what East Peoria Community High School looked like before COVID-19. I remember how we used to award homecoming court with headdresses and feather crowns as if a single student in this school understood why such rituals were important to the Native American community. As a mainly white school, the Native American culture is not ours to use, and not ours to celebrate. In fact, European colonization wiped out nearly 90% of the Native American population existing at the time, stripping them of their languages, customs, religions, and lives. To go off script a little, I didn't learn about any of this until my senior year in an AP class that had not existed until this year. And to be honest, a lot of students at this school will never take an AP class, let alone Mr. Diggle's AP US History class. A lot of the students at this level of education have already came to the conclusion that our current mascot is offensive and that what we're doing is clear and other cultural appropriation. As a school, it is our job to properly educate our children, and right now we're educating them, telling them that it is okay to justify racism, because that's all this is. If it weren't racism, we would be able to identify the tribe we're representing. We would be educated about why we're representing this tribe. We would have never had the name Red before Raiders in the first place. If this was true pride of Native American heritage, we would educate about how harmfully European colonization affected them, how many tribes were erased, and how many customs were lost. This is stuff we'll never be able to get back, and we just parade around costumes, basically, of a general Native American stereotype as if we even know what we're talking about. Thank you.
Thank you. 017 is up now, and then to follow will be 009.
Hello, my name is Juno Heider. I'm a current sophomore at this school. About a year ago, at the beginning of my freshman year, I started a petition to remove the school's mascot. And I remember the outrage that sparked in our community, what side of the argument you were on. And I think it put a lot of things into perspective that I, as a young white boy, starting a petition, that's what got this attention. And it should not have taken this long for this to have this attention it does now. This is not something that only affects our community, but it affects our nation. So many schools across the US have used Native American imagery in offensive and disgusting ways. I had the opportunity to listen to a group of students who interviewed the Dayspring Church a couple years ago, and I listened to those accounts of people, and I listened to how hurt the Native and Indigenous community was by what we do at this school, the war chant that we used to sing at football games, the Find the Tomahawk, giving our prom king and queen headdresses. Do we know what that means? Do the white and non-Indigenous student body know what any of this means? The answer is no. These school traditions are not traditions. They are gross mockeries of a culture that we are not a part of as a whole school. There is no tribe that the mascot we use belongs to, so we cannot pinpoint the traditions that we are supposed to be using to honor this native tribe. We are not honoring anything. We are making a mockery of something. The school pride that we have can exist, but our school pride is not Native and Indigenous pride. Our school pride is not someone else's culture. Our school pride should be our own. Our school pride should be something not associated with someone else's culture, something we are stealing. The word raider is a gross word. It's someone who rapes and pillages villages and who genocides people. And that sounds a lot more akin to the European colonists who did destroy Native culture. I am not the first one to bring attention to this issue, and I shouldn't have had to wait this long for it to be brought to attention. Thank you for your time.
009, and then to follow will be 008.
Thank you. My name is Dr. Ray Ramirez. I'm a practice owner here in East Peoria, and many of the alumni and students are clients of mine. And I graduated from Chatham Glenwood High School in '79, and our mascot at that time was the Redskins. And they have recently changed it to, well, not so recently, 20 years ago, changed it over to, I don't even remember what it was. Couple of points I just wanted to bring up. We've had people from both sides of the argument discussing whether the Raiders mascot is offensive or not. And there are two sides. I wish the board all the wisdom of Solomon in making this upcoming decision. But two things I would like to point out from that perspective, and also as University of Illinois alum, there is real continuity with the different names and the imagery, and it is very interesting to me to see, being 20 years removed from my high school and 10 plus years from the university, how disconnected the two generations are from that. And I feel that is a real shame. Part of the reason Illinois was not, unlike Florida State Seminoles, was not able to go to a tribe to get their impression on that is because those of you who are used to the Illinois history know about Starved Rock, where the Illini were basically killed or starved from the Iroquois tribe from that, which is why they are no longer in existence, because they starved them to death on that rock. Again, I think this is an interesting topic. It is a challenging one for the board, and again, I wish you all the wisdom, because this is not an easy topic, and I wish people would realize that we can agree to disagree and still, still make our community great and encourage us to be the best version of ourselves. Thank you.
.008. And then the last person with a ticket to speak tonight is 015.
Hi, my name's Joe Engel, 97 graduate of East Peoria. I've got two kids that go here now, a daughter that's graduated. So I was born and raised in this area, and I've always been what I've considered a Raider. I've never, and I'm looking from my view, I've never found it to be offensive. I've never seen the school or students make a mockery of it. It's been the symbol. I've never seen the symbol, where they've changed it up to make it look, offensive anyway. It's always been the same, and I understand it's a generalized symbol with the Raider head. It doesn't really depict any one tribe or another. And to be honest with you, if it wasn't for the high school and the college Indian Native American mascot, and it seems I didn't learn about it in school. I didn't see it anywhere else. Where else do you see it in society? This is what I know about it, and this is how I learned from it. So when you said earlier that maybe the thing is to teach some classes, I think we should. But I don't think that, we should also abandon the Raider name as well. I mean, it's been here a long time. There's a lot of pride in the community with it, I feel like. I understand that there's people that are against it too. I think, that's okay. But I would like to see it stay. I don't know if the board has a group actively pursuing it to get rid of it, and if so, then that's something that maybe needs to be looked at or addressed. If you guys are looking for maybe to get a committee together and do a deeper dive in this, I certainly would volunteer my time and throw in my perspective, but I understand that my perspective is just that, it's mine, and it needs to be a very diverse group, I think, that would look into it as well. And maybe there's a way to keep the Raider name, and maybe there's a way to keep the symbol it is, but I don't disagree that it doesn't maybe need to be looked at, and it needs to be done correctly. It needs to be done right. Maybe there's some correction that needs to be made with it. But I would I kind of agree. I think maybe Mr. Knapp said it, or maybe it was Mayor Cole, where we just kind of said just pump the brakes a little bit. I know that, you know, with the stylized EP is what I call it. I can be done if you need to. You know, we changed it on the gym floor, and I understand that. And we didn't put it on the new school, on the new football field, and I kind of understand that. But there's other things that are going on that I don't understand, like the mural in the gym that got painted over. I'm going to guess it was this summer. I don't understand why we did that. We've actively started taking the signage off, like the activity buses. I mean, are we being pressured to do that right now, or maybe we should just wait? You know, let's look into it a little bit further before we just keep doing this kind of stuff, and you know, that's all I ask is that, you know.
Thanks for your comments, and also thank you for your dedication to the Booster Club. It's appreciated.
Hi, my name's Casey Pifer. I'm an English teacher at EP here. This is my 11th year. And I will say I'm the teacher that I went with the students to do that podcast. I went to Day Springs Methodist Church. We did a potluck. We brought food. They invited us in, and they were just so kind and welcoming, and Becca can attest to that. I'll take my mask down. One thing that I want to say before I do my prepared bit is that when we were kind of just casually talking to them after they told us, you know, how offensive our mascot is that they feel very ignored. One person said, you know, I feel like we're ignored. If this were an African-American negative stereotype, it would have been removed already, and I feel like no one cares about us. And so that's why I thought, you know, this is our time to kind of move forward and progress and do better, because now we know better, we need to do better. I'm a teacher here at EPCHS, and I want to open by saying that I am thankful we are meeting here tonight to be able to say what has been on my heart since I began teaching here 11 years ago. I want to start by saying that there are a lot of positives about our school. We have an inclusive environment and numerous supports in place for students in all different walks of their lives. So when I was handed a complimentary polo with the Raider head on it in a new teacher meeting, I was so appreciative that they wanted me to feel included by wearing our school colors, but it was unsettling knowing the complacency I was settling into wearing the mascot imagery embroidered into the shirt. It didn't match up with the inclusive and accepting environment I would come to know in other areas of our school. As a teacher, I am hearing more and more students who are uncomfortable with wearing our mascot and participating in our cheers. Furthermore, with our skits being insensitive at homecoming in front of the entire community and passing down shallow traditions such as cheers at sporting events, we as adults are telling our students that it is okay to reduce all different tribes of North American Indians into collective stereotypes that are rude and degrading. We need to change our imagery in order to show our kids what it looks like to actually honor someone, which is not to cherry pick what we believe their culture is, but to do away with this imagery altogether, because we have been told this time and time again, that our mascot is not honoring to Native Americans. Our mascot is not EP's tradition. It is a dumping ground of offensive and over-exaggerated stereotypes that we do not understand and that are not remotely accurate. A culture's regalia and customs are not our costumes and entertainment. I have heard the argument that our mascot honors indigenous people, but the aggressive name of Raider is coupled with offensive caricatures, so we cannot continue arguing that we are honoring anyone. Our school is predominantly white, so it is not up to someone outside of a culture to determine whether or not that culture is being honored. It is long overdue that we change our imagery. In closing, I would like to quote Frederick Bachman's wise words from his book Beartown, whose storyline is filled with the importance of questioning old and tired traditions. He writes, "Difficult questions, simple answers. What is a community? It is a sum total of our choices. What we choose to allow our children to do matters. After hearing everyone out tonight, we can no longer teach them that engaging with the mascot imagery and practices is remotely okay. It isn't, and we can do better. We should not sit idly by and wait for legislation to push us into doing what's right." Thank you.
Thank you. It's not our intention here to stop anybody who wishes to speak and address here, so if there was anybody that was missed, I believe, yeah, I don't know. Might have been Mr. Du Bois's creative accounting.
I'm Trevor McGinnis, a senior here at East Peoria Community High School. Today, East Peoria Community High School does not have the same school spirit it once had 4 years ago. 4 years ago, we had a mascot and many traditions that united the students and staff of East Peoria Community High School. If we disagreed with other beliefs, at the end of the day, we all had one thing in common: Raider pride. I know many students and teachers that love the Raider and mascot and its many traditions. Some people are here tonight, but many are afraid that they will be attacked by their peers for supporting the Raider mascot. I remember staff always wanting more Raider pride, but the removal of the mascot, the school war chant, the symbols will not produce more school spirit. This year's homecoming felt like something was missing, since many school traditions have been removed due to the Raider mascot's connection. Homecoming felt like there was not much school spirit compared to prior years. Many traditions were lost this year, and if the Raider mascot is fully removed, the students will lose the traditions that caused them to have school pride. I remember my favorite part of freshman year was playing the school war chant with the band for basketball games and assemblies and football games. The school war chant complemented the school song very well for a great entrance for the football team and basketball team. Today, our school needs the Raider mascot even more than 4 years ago. The Raider mascot and its symbols united us to have pride for our school, sports, and activities. For many years, we've had our school traditions built on the mascot and symbols. Some examples of our school tradition: the marching band with the war chant and being called Marching Raiders, uniforms, color guard flags, inside the tribe with the logos, theme, and spirit, the football team with the inflatable headgear. The uniforms for all sports have a connection to our mascot colors, the yearbook with the Raider mascot and symbols. If we remove the Raider mascot from school, we will lose morale for school sports activities. Many students, clubs, staff throughout the years have worked hard for school pride and traditions. The Raider mascot is important to American culture. Like important symbols such as Lady Liberty, Uncle Sam, Rosie the Riveter, Smokey the Bear, and many other great symbols. Will we change these symbols? No. Then why should we change this great American symbol? Why are we removing this mascot? Will it improve the school? Will it unite the students? No. If the school removes the Raider mascot, it will divide the school alumni that attended when they experienced these great Raider traditions from the future students who will not get to experience these great Raider traditions. If we remove and rename traditions such as the mascot, this will not be the same school. We will not have any traditions for future students who should have the same rights to experience traditions as my class and past classes of the school had.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that came this evening that would wish to address? Sure.
Hi, my name is Celia Santos. I'm a parent to a student at East Peoria High School. I'm also a parent to a Central Junior High student as well as a Chute school student, and those schools don't have Raiders as their mascots. I'm not from East Peoria. I don't have this long tradition and history of what you guys are considering your city and town pride. I'm from Chicago. I'm the south side of Chicago. Chicago's a melting pot of culture. I grew up where people who are white do not just think that they're white. They know that they are Polish, they know that they are Greek, they know that they are Irish, and that is celebrated, and they are proud of it, and everyone is made aware of it. Obviously, you know Chicago has many, many festivals and things for people to be proud of those things. Those traditions that you guys have in East Peoria, the traditions that my children are now creating, having lived out here for, 8+ years, that has nothing to do with the mascot. It has nothing to do with this high school. It has to do with the community. Community is more than just a mascot. It is the people. It is what they want. It is what
is best for the community, what you provide for the students and the children that are growing up in the area. And you have to educate them about culture. You have to educate them about what's appropriate and what's inappropriate. I have a child who's half Cambodian. She will never learn about that. She will never learn, besides from me and her father, that her grandmother fled Cambodia during the war and walked to Thailand. But that is not something that she will learn here. It is our responsibility as parents to teach our children culture, to teach them pride. We shouldn't rely on a school mascot to do that, or to think that taking indigenous culture as a mascot is okay. It's not. It's offensive. It just needs to be removed. The Raider name needs to be removed, and let the students decide. Let them vote. It is for the students. Let the seniors, the juniors, the freshmen, the upcoming schools, the students from other schools that are coming in freshman year, let them decide what mascot they would like represented for their school, because they are the ones that are showing the pride. They are the ones that this is representing. It is not for us adults who we have long passed this tradition. We need to let them voice their opinions. We cannot talk about the past and what it was. We have to talk about what it is now and what it is for them in the future. And we have to let the students decide. We need to change the name. We need to remove the mascot. Let the students decide. That's it.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anybody else this evening that would like to speak?
Is this on? Yeah. My name is Rebecca Ransom. I am one of the people who went with Miss Pifer my senior year to the Dayspring United Methodist Church. And I live in Urbana, and I drove an hour and a half to come here because it's really important to me to share my perspective on this. So I had an event recently where a memory showed up on my Facebook page from my sophomore year when I was crowned the sophomore homecoming attendant. And I was really ashamed of it. We talk about honor and being proud of where we came from, but I had this big moment in my life that I felt embarrassed to share because I was 16 and didn't know better than to let someone put a headpiece on me that had feathers on it that no one who had anything to do with it knew what it meant. It didn't have any meaning to us. All it was an iconography. So I guess that is pretty much all I have to say. On top of that, I go to U of I now, and let me tell you, I've never been somewhere that has more pride in where they are and what they're doing than the people that go to U of I. And the racist mascot was removed a really long time ago. However, during games, you'll see people decked out in orange and blue, and people are, I promise you, not prouder to come from anywhere else. And I know the same will be true for here once we get rid of this mascot. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anybody else tonight? Sure. So I just would like to thank everybody for coming out tonight and for sharing your thoughts about this subject. I'd like to speak as an individual. I am a board member, so a little bit of the process that I think will happen, and this hasn't been decided at all, but this is what like I said earlier on, this is what I'm calling a first step. You know, this was to gather people together to hear, to listen, and to learn. And what I would think the next steps will be as a group, as a board, is we'll decide what the next steps are, which I would think would involve some sort of community involvement and stakeholder involvement to see where we would go next, not knowing what that is. But again, I'm very encouraged by this. I'd also would like to let everybody know the Board of Education does meet on the third Monday of every month at 6 o'clock. We meet in the Raider Conference Room, which is in the basement of A building. I've been a board member for many years, and I could probably tell you that the number of people in the audience tonight would probably be more than have attended all the board meetings I've ever been to. So, you know, part of being involved in the community is having your voice heard so that the people that you elect can understand what the community wishes and can work to enact those wishes through the policy that we create and through the administrators that we guide and who provide feedback to us on how to guide them. So I just, again, thank you very much for your time tonight.
I would echo all of those thoughts, and I just want to reiterate how much we appreciate all of you coming out. It's not easy to speak in front of a group, especially a group where you don't know most of the people that you may be speaking to. So I appreciate all of the comments. I took a lot of notes. We've got our recording, and we will be in further discussion and determine, you know, what next steps are and when those next steps may take place. So thank you very much for being here tonight. Hope you have a safe trip home, and we appreciate your time. Thanks.